All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's about 10 minutes after 6 o'clock. I will officially call to order this special meeting of the Waco ISD Board of Trustees. We do have a quorum of board members here present this evening. And on behalf of the entire board, I want to thank each of you for joining us for the first of our three community meetings. These are posted as board meetings, but the real purpose tonight is to hear from you and to listen to our community. As most of you know, in 2015, the state legislature passed a law that any school that is improvement required for 5 years either shall be closed by the commissioner of the Texas Education Agency or the Board of Trustees of that district shall be replaced by a Board of Managers. This evening, Dr. Nelson is going to discuss what the law requires and some of the limited options that we as a district and community have moving forward. Before we get started, we do have some special guests and elected officials. I want to take an opportunity to recognize those. First, State Representative Doc Anderson is here. Thank you, Doc, for joining us this evening. For those of you who don't know, there are pillars here that obstruct the line of sight from anybody on this end, so I may miss someone, but I'm going to try to get them all. Somewhere probably behind the pillar, we've got Mayor Kyle Deaver and former Mayor Malcolm Duncan. The interim dean of the School of Ed, Terrell Saxon, has joined us tonight from Baylor. We also have partners with us from across the community, including Felicia Goodman from the Cooper Foundation and Tom Stanton from the Rappaport Foundation. We appreciate y'all being here. And I personally consider the Waco Tribune-Herald to be a partner. So we've got Bill Whitaker here from the editorial component of the Waco Trib. I know there are other members of the community here. Thank you again for joining us. We hope you learned something about sort of what we are facing as a community. And then again, we do have a majority of the board here this evening. Norman Manning has gone to an NAACP meeting that's happening this evening at the same time to get that feedback. But we really do want to hear from the community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Nelson.
Good evening. Very excited to host the first of three community meetings that really are intended to increase awareness of our academic realities here in the Waco Independent School District. This district has come a long way since its inception and has proven to be a very resilient, vibrant, strong school district. And we're faced with the opportunity to continuously improve our program or face the consequences. And I really believe in this school system. I believe in this city. And that's why we feel like it's so important that we come to our community and clearly communicate our plan and seek input. Before we get started on the challenges that we're facing over the next couple of semesters, I wanted to start by introducing the Board of Trustees from the Waco Independent School District. You already met our president, Mr. Pat Atkins. We also have our board vice president, Mr. Alan Sykes. Our board secretary, as was mentioned, is at another meeting, but we love him still the same, Mr. Norman Manning. We also have board member, Mr. Kerry Dupuy. We also have Mrs. Angela Tikel and Mr. Larry Pettis in the back. Let's give them a round of applause. And last but certainly not least, behind the pillar, for the record, that we talked about, Mrs. Stephanie Quarterway. So we're very thankful to you as I look around the room. Many of you are here because I know I specifically invited you. And I'm appreciative of that. And we have some exciting plans to really increase our partnerships in this school district, because what we found is that the work that we're facing, we're not going to be able to accomplish our goals alone. We need help, and we need to take this more seriously as a community. But before I get into that, let's first talk about the first few weeks of school. We had a survey done, a nice formal survey with detailed metrics that an outside company coordinated for us. And I won't go over all of it in the interest of time. I really want to just get to what we've come here to talk about. But it was so good to get that survey. And really what the survey said is that in general, many members of our school community, whether it's kids, students, parents and families, teachers and staff, community members, are satisfied with the school district. They feel like we're either really good or excellent. And that's encouraging. Now, I think everybody has a little bit different way of measuring that. For some kids, it's how well the enchiladas are on Wednesdays, and that's how they measure whether we're good or excellent. For some parents, it's if their child got the teachers that they wanted them to get, then they think we're great. If they didn't, then they don't think we're so great. But one of the slides that we took from a detailed survey, it had several slides, is that 69% of all participants in the survey rated Waco ISD as excellent or good. The survey also talked about that 55% of all respondents agree or strongly agree that Waco ISD prepares our students for success beyond high school. 75% of all respondents agree or strongly agree that Waco ISD provides a safe environment for our students, certainly a priority for us. And then 59% of the adults agree that we've been great stewards of taxpayer dollars, and that's because of our outstanding leadership of our finance department, and we're very proud of that. Some of the opportunities to improve, in my humble opinion, I'm not sure. The survey says that a lot of the kids weren't sure if we were good stewards of financial dollars, but I think they just couldn't define good steward or what that meant, so we'll go with that. In general, parents and students have a more positive perception of Waco ISD than community members. So, I'm not going to mislead you. The survey did have several slides where I feel like we can improve. But overall, it was a good survey, and it said that we're headed in the right direction. There's lots of parental and family support, and the expectations for our school district are increasing, not just at the state and federal level, but right here in our own community. People are expecting us to graduate citizens that are prepared to pursue post-secondary education or enter a career of their choice. And we're working fervently to really make those goals and objectives a reality. I won't go over all the district profile. For those of you that are not aware, we're just under 15,000 students. I can't read the rest. 2,800 employees, 61 square miles. Just so you know, I come from a district called the Laredo Independent School District. 26,000 students, 11 square miles. Yeah. It's kind of tight. Kind of tight. So here we have 26 campuses, and we're real proud of our school district. Lots of highlights. Want to be real clear that as we talk about the challenges that we've come here to discuss tonight, a lot of good things happening in this school district. Tennyson Middle School is one that jumps to my mind. While we do have some campuses that are chronically low performing, you can only receive 7 distinctions in the STAR accountability system. And to be a campus that receives all 7 distinctions, to make a long story short, you have to be taking care of business. And Tennyson is one of those schools. We've got lots of great things happening at Waco is one of our signature programs. And we're looking to increase that program and increase our relationship with local business partners and really trying to create some pipelines where our kids get first dibs at some of these high-paying jobs right out of high school. We recently reorganized. For the record, we've already reorganized in a way that has reduced our budget as far as overhead by almost $500,000. You haven't heard, but not only do we have these academic challenges, we also have a $3 million deficit we're trying to address along the way. So the expectations are going up and the money is depleting quickly. And so we've tried to reorganize ourselves in a way that, in my humble opinion, we're more efficient. And we're trying to do more with less. And we'll continue to reduce that budget another $2.5 million as we work toward approving a budget for next year. So we see that as a highlight because campuses, I believe, will tell you they haven't seen any type of dwindling of support. We still are intended to support our campuses in a way that is highly functionable. So let's get to the part of why we're here today. We're here to talk about, in my humble opinion, I shouldn't joke like this, but it's more important than the landfill. You're welcome, Mayor. Yeah. I take the headline for a day, you take it for 2 days. All right. It's more important than that. God bless that initiative. It's more important than what happened at Twin Peaks. It's more important than anything you want to talk about in Waco. What we're doing to deal with our inner city schools is the most important thing we should think about in terms of the future of our city. Now, I want to commend this Board of Trustees because to make the point clear, this board didn't just start talking about this with my arrival. This board has been communicating this, receiving training on this, and really trying to bring in leadership that can help us solve this problem. In 2015, there was a House bill that passed. And it's important to say this, as much as respect as I have for the Honorable Doc Anderson, I want to say that it's important that the community knows this came from the legislature. It was approved. House Bill 1842 in 2015. They sent it to TEA, and here we are. House Bill 1842 basically says if your school is chronically low performing, TEA has one of two options. They can completely remove the board of managers, or they can close the school. Now, I personally don't think that either of those are options. For the record, when TEA called us on August the 17th, 2017, they said, hey, friendly reminder, in May of 2018, we're closing 5 of your schools. You know what they also said? Removing your board's not an option. Your board has done everything we've asked them to do. And when we consider removing boards of trustees and replacing them with boards of managers, in those school districts, you can go watch their board meetings online, and you can see the dysfunction that happens at the board level. For the record, you see none of that with our board. Our board is a bunch of professional men and women who accept responsibility and really have hired one employee, which is in their role, to help address this problem. And I'm glad to hear that because I've heard people in our community say, that's what we need to do. And I disagree. They brought me. So I never will be on the record as saying we need a new board of managers. Whether you like them or not, they at least had that foresight. And now here we are, So then if you take replacing the board off the table, well, then that leaves you closing the schools. I don't want to get into colloquialisms and my Southern charm, but let's just leave it like this. Closing schools is not an option for me. It'll never be recommended from my office to the Board of Trustees that we just close schools and deal with it. It just won't happen. So then I look at our principals, they can already tell you that leaves only one option, and that's for us to make it. And our campus principals, many of here are here today, will tell you that that is their focus right now, is making sure that we shock the world and educate our kids in a way that they're able to exceed all state and federal standards. So House Bill 1842 is not a board policy. It's not a mandate from the superintendent. See, some people saw an article about 5 low-performing schools being closed. You know what the first thing they said is? Nelson lost his mind. Think he gonna come in and close some schools. Not gonna happen. We're gonna have a protest. Well, who are you protesting to? Representative Anderson? Because you need to go over there. Don't come here because it wasn't my rule. It's been here. We've been knowing this for 5 years. So why is everybody trying to act all surprised and aggressive now about what you're not gonna tolerate and what you're not gonna do? Where were you year one? For the record, in most communities, if you have a low-performing school for 1 year, it gets ugly because people don't tolerate it in their community. And it doesn't matter if you have to change the principal or you have to change every teacher or whatever you have to do. In Plano, they fixed that problem. In Judson ISD, there are 79% poverty and 0 IR schools. Laredo Independent School District, 98% poverty and 0 IR schools. You know why? Because a principal won't be a principal if they go IR in Laredo. You won't teach 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade in Laredo if your kids can't perform at a certain level. And so if that means you got to tutor before school, vamonos. If that means you have to tutor before school and after school and on Saturdays, then that's what you do. And it requires an entire pyramid of interventions. But as much as I try and clarify that this House bill came from the legislature, there was also in this recent legislative session, if you go to the next slide, Senate Bill 1882. Senate Bill 1882 basically is what I call a little wiggle room. Okay, so you're not going to close. Nelson, you made that clear. TEA said they don't want a new board of managers. Well, Senate Bill 1882 gives us 3 options. Number 1, I could turn over those 5 schools, give up, quit, surrender those schools to a charter network. For profit. If you've heard about the privatization of public education, here it is. 5 schools go to a charter network. They no longer report to this Board of Trustees. Their principals, their teachers no longer get checks from the Waco ISD. We would reduce our budget by all of those teachers, all of those kids, and in my humble opinion, begin the end of Waco ISD. That's why it cannot happen. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is we could have some type of partnership. Now, they're real loose on this definition. And as we introduce this tonight, the partnership basically is working with a local nonprofit. And the state of Texas will say it like this. Fine, you don't want a charter school? Your community made this problem. Come up with a partnership in your community that will fix it. And for the record, Waco, we still then only have 2 years to get the schools to performing, or they close them then. So this is serious. And at the end of the day, we've got to improve student outcomes. And it's going to be uncomfortable for every kid, every family, every teacher, principal we got, as it should be. See, we don't want a community that has several chronically low-performing schools. Our community is better than that. Now, I'm not trying to boldly proclaim that we're the best. I'm not trying to compete necessarily against the Midways or the La Vegas or some of our surrounding districts, but we're better than what we're performing now. And anyone who tries to say the reason that we're low performing is because kids are poor, don't ever say that to me. That's not an excuse. Brook Avenue is one of the schools about to be closed. You walk right outside to the playground, you can see West Avenue, one of the highest performing schools in the region. Same poverty, same situation. And so we've got to ask ourselves, how uncomfortable are we about the fact that we haven't accomplished this community goal? Everything that our mayor and our city council and our commissioners want for economic development, prosperity in our city, reducing poverty, reducing crime, that all goes through a quality public education system where kids have choices regardless of their backgrounds. And the standards that they have in other communities is the same standards we have to have here. We have to there's a standard. And we have to expect more from ourselves and mainly from our students. In this partnership that we're allowed under Senate Bill 1882, we're not even considering charter networks. We are considering partnerships that another way that they can be defined as in-district charters. This is where we have a relationship with the local nonprofit, but those schools still report to Waco ISD. Those teachers still get paid by Waco ISD. Our board is still, for the record, our board is still responsible for these schools no matter what. No matter what, this community is going to have to address this low-performing problem. So it's not going away. And, you know, on behalf of our staff, we get somewhat frustrated with having to deal with all of the bureaucracy that is the Texas Education Agency. It's a distraction. I spend more time on teleconferences and visits and all these other things from TEA when, you know what I'm supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to be over there at Carver Middle School working that math department. But instead, we have to deal with these technical expectations. Every Friday, we got to have a conference call. And you know what they say? What are you doing? I want to say, what else can we do? But that's the situation we're in. We are being forced to address this problem, and we are going to address it with every fiber that's in me. We will not have low-performing campuses. I made this bold proclamation in my last district when we had 19 low-performing. And you know what people said? No, Nelson, don't say that. Don't say that. Well, whatever. We will not have any low-performing schools on my watch. It won't happen. If we have to change every principal, if we have to change every teacher, if we have to start over, we will. But we're not surrendering schools to TEA. It's not going to happen. It's not good for our community. Do you know what would happen to East Waco if we closed Indian Springs and Carver? If you don't know, you need to ask somebody. It'd be the end of those communities. Those are the lifebloods of those communities. And it's unfortunate that our schools that are being threatened to be closed are minimized to 3 basic zip codes. And they're in East and South Waco. Those communities are better than that. And they need adults that lead them where they need to go. You know, some of my critics say that I'm blaming teachers. That is absolutely untrue. Nobody is a bigger supporter of teachers than me. But as my good friend, the Deputy Commissioner of the Texas Education Agency says, student outcomes do not change until adult behaviors change. And I wish I could go to all 15,000 kids and shake them a little, not literally shake them, but, wake them up and get them fired up. But no, that's not the scope of my authority. But those 2,400 employees from 7:30 to 7 at night, they work for me. And we're going to give all of our love and our peace and our happiness to this objective. And when it's all said and done, I want the kids to say, we did it. Mr. McAdoo, who's here, he's principal at Carver. We talk all the time. One of the things he said is, respectfully to the Waco Tribune, see, kids read the Waco Tribune and they get embarrassed. Isn't that right, Mr. McAdoo? They read it and they're thinking, what can I do? How can we get off this list? And so I'm looking at the adults. You got a group of kids saying, what can I do? How can we get off this list? And shame on us for not providing them a way. So I've listed, the next slide lists the campuses: GW Carver Middle School, Indian Springs Middle School, Alta Vista, Brook Avenue, J.H. Hines. Now what we'd like to do before we open it up for comments and questions is just tell you some of our ideas that we think will gain compliance, will meet compliance standards with TEA. So we got 2 middle schools. We can't close them. One of the things we thought about doing is creating single gender middle schools. Carver would become an all-male leadership academy, the GW Carver Male Leadership Academy. Then the Indian Springs Middle School would become, did I mix it up? Well, whatever. Thank you. Everybody's like, what, you don't want no women's academy or something? So we've actually looked at the capacity at both schools, and it really will work out either way. It's whatever's up there is what we're proposing. But one of our schools would be all male, the other one would be all female. That's a movement. All of our ideas are based on best practice. This is not some outlandish idea. If you know anything about our 6th through 8th grade kiddos, we believe that this has some hormonal advantages that will allow them to focus more on their academics. You know, another idea that's not up there, just to kind of spur your thinking as we solicit feedback, we could have a 6th grade center. We could put a 6th grade center, I forgot, we looked at the capacity today. We could have a 6th grade center at Indian Springs, and then Carver could be a 7th and 8th grade junior high. I don't like that as much as the single gender, but I'm trying to give you some ideas as we start asking for additional feedback. So then we go to our elementaries. Here's what we feel like is the crux of the problem. We go to our elementary schools. We need to invest more in early childhood education. When you talk to local organizations like the United Way, LULAC, NAACP, all of these organizations have in their goals and vision and mission to clearly focus on 0 to 5. And their attitude is that if we can reduce the achievement gap. By the time kids enter kindergarten, then that'll manifest itself by the time kids get to third grade. And I think there's some truth to that. So, for example, at J.H. Hines and Brook Avenue, we see this partnership where J.H. Hines will become the Hines Early Childhood Center for Excellence. It would still be called Hines. It would serve pre-K 3, pre-K 4, and kindergarten students, first and second grade, kids from Hines and Brook Avenue's feeder zones. And then at Brook Avenue, we would have 3, 4, and 5, grades 3, 4, and 5, with kids from Hines and Brook Avenue. It would allow us to have a campus that focuses on early childhood and what Prosper Waco calls wraparound services, dealing with parents and families, dealing with all kinds of community partners that work on hunger initiatives, literacy initiatives, financial security. And then when you come to third, fourth, and fifth, we get down to business. And at Brook Avenue, we would have our best third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers in the district working with those kids on assessment grades that hopefully will improve student outcomes. Our idea is to do the same thing, the same partnership with Alta Vista and South Waco, where South Waco would be an early childhood center, pre-K 3, 4, and kindergarten, first and second. And then that would be kids from South Waco and Alta Vista. And then in grades 3, 4, and 5, they would go to Alta Vista. And it'd be kids from South Waco and Alta Vista. Once again, these have not been presented to the board for approval. And getting a unanimous vote on local partners we would work with or concepts that we think may work, I can't speak for all 7. But tonight we're rolling out the ideas, and what we're asking for is if you got a better idea, speak up. You got any ideas, we welcome them. We need feedback so that we can do our best thinking. But this is going to the board for a vote in January. And we wanted to be able to say, we went to the community in October. We had a series of 3 meetings throughout the community. We sought input. And I just want to emphasize to our local community that this is serious. And I want you to have confidence in your leadership of the school district that our focus is laser-like. There's never been, for me, there's never been an opportunity like the one that is before us right now. I have people telling me that the schools we're talking about, hear this, I have people telling me they'll never perform. How can you say that at Halloween? We have 6 more months of school. So what do you want to do? Just write those kids off? Bus them to Midway? That's what you want to do? Just close the whole thing. Bus them where the schools are better. That's what you believe. But if you believe that this community deserves quality public schools, well, you got to roll up your sleeves, and you're going to have to help us fix this problem that we created. And it can and it will be fixed. We will not rest until we leave no stone unturned in fixing student outcomes. It's why we exist. We'll be having the meeting today. We're about to open it up for comments and questions, feedback. We have microphones throughout the facility. We have scribes taking notes. And I humbly thank you for coming to this meeting today because I feel like this is the beginning of something special. And when our kids are so proud that we made it, all of us will know, yeah, they did it. They did it. So, comments or questions? Yes, sir. Hunger Initiative, yeah.
Yes, I am here with the Hunger Initiative, but my comment and question is as a community member. I'm wondering, I don't know if we have the principals from the IR schools here. My question would be to each of them, as a community member and someone who has connections with a lot of different organizations, what do you need from us this week, and then this month, and then every month between now until tests? We would love as a community to be challenged and to be told we can't do it on our own. Our superintendent, our school board, our teachers can't do it on our own. We need our communities, and we need to know what you need from us.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me start by introducing the principals that are here that fall into that category. First, we have from Carver Middle School, Mr. Alonso McAdoo. Then we have from Alta, then from Alta Vista Elementary, we have Mrs. Carmen Logan. Am I missing anyone else? Ms. Julie Sapar is the principal at J.H. Hines. I believe she's at her campus right now as we speak. The principal at Brook Avenue is Miss Sarah Pedrati. Thank you. And then Dr. John Jenkins is the principal at Indian Springs Middle School. So really, I believe the gentleman's question was to Mr. McAdoo or Ms. Logan about what they can do today, tomorrow. Got anything? You know, just to prime your thinking, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but really, it's funny you ask that because we get that a lot. And everybody has a different level of wanting to be involved. You know, it's like the old adage, not everybody that says they going to heaven is going. Well, that's kind of how everybody wants to help the kids until it's time to roll up your sleeves and walk in there and do the work. So, you know, one of the things I know we need is mentor support. We need more volunteers that just come and spend time helping us develop the work. We have a host of what we call parent and family engagement initiatives led by our Office of Student Services. And we'd encourage local members of the community to really become active in what our campuses are doing. Ms. Logan, you'd like to add anything?
I think exactly what you were saying, Dr. Nelson. A lot of those things. We have a few small organizations, First Presbyterian and Community Bank are two of our partners that do have some volunteers that come in, and we partner those people with their strengths and where they can partner and mentor some students. And then their time availability with, because of course we don't want students missing a lot of instructional time for that, but we also believe that a lot of our students do have a lot of needs that can be helped by different community members.
You know, before I ask Mr. McAdoo to make a comment, you know, one of the things you can help us with is this negative perception of the school district. You know, everywhere I go, whether it's realtors or church or grocery store, you know, it's like, I say I'm from Waco ISD, and I say it with pride, like, yeah. And people, and so I feel like our community is just already turned their backs on your inner city kids. And for the record, these kids, these 15,000 kids, this is the conscience of the community. Yeah, this is the conscience. Kids that don't have the same home atmosphere as some other kids. And just because they don't have that same home atmosphere doesn't mean that we should act like their schools are poor. And so I would encourage, you know, local community members, parents, to talk good about your public schools. Talk good about your teachers. Believe it or not, you would think that if you're Anglo, you don't live in inner city Waco. You get to read in the paper. You would think everybody that's Anglo moved to Midway. That's not true. I was just meeting with the junior league the other day. By their own admission, one of them moved midway. She said the floor plan was what she wanted. God bless her. But the other one said, no, we live right here downtown. Proud of it. And so I just think that we need people to be positive spokesmen for the school system. Of course it's not perfect. Of course it's not where we want it to be. But I can tell you, we have some of the best and brightest kids I've ever met. They're beautiful. They come from a diverse background. We have kids that have two parents at home that both of their parents went to college. One of them went to Texas A&M, the other one went to Texas Tech, and the kids are not having to wonder, I wonder if I'm gonna go to college or not. No, that's not what they're thinking. They gotta decide, are they gonna go to Texas Tech or are they gonna be an Aggie? And sitting right next to that kid is someone who lives a horror story at home. And that's what makes our school district special, is that both of those kids should be able to get what they deserve. So we gotta have people talking that up. We gotta have people supporting our kids and not acting like it's this ghetto or this dump. This is not. It's a strong, vibrant, diverse community. The diversity in our community is our strength. It makes our kids more competitive when they leave Waco. They done seen some things. They done learned how to code switch and acclimate. And hopefully that'll make them stronger. Mr. McAdoo, do you want to add to this question?
Yes, sir. I just want to first say, when I think about my students, they are resilient. That's the word that comes to my mind. And just to add what you said, what can you do this week? One, fill out the volunteer form. Time is always important. There's two roles you can play within our campus. One, just mentor, speaking to them. A lot of times our students need that listening ear, and we appreciate that at any point. Two, if you're strong in math or reading, we can automatically pull out 4 or 5 kids, get you skilled in that, and work with those kids throughout the day and set up a time for them. The most important thing is, though, once you commit that time, make sure it's something that you can continue to do, because my students are accustomed to those that leave. So once you do put in that time, make sure it's something, again, that you can stick with, and they'll do anything for you. They'll be right there. And then the third and final thing, any type of incentives or anything to help me get those students to school. I mean, it's just something where we all pull out of our, I'm looking at my accounts, but we just all pull out of our pocket and we try to get them some type of outside motivation to get them there. But those 3 things could help immediately this week. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Now, with a school of that nature, now how do you mix those mentorships and those mathematics or those science courses during with the school program of the day? How do you not allow those items or those mentors in that during the course of helping those students? How do you keep that from interfering in the coursework that they have, that they must listen to for the day?
Thank you for that question, too, and it's a real good question. One of the things we do during those elective times, say if they have art or say if they have band or anything like that, we have band electives or clubs after school that they can go and make that time up if they really want to work on that skill. But one of the things we really push at Carver Middle School, we need you to be strong in the areas of reading and math. So throughout their schedule, we go through, try to find out what time slot fits with them, and looking at their at-risk or their specific needs after getting different testing, we look at what tutoring is available, who is there to help them with that skill, and we target it like it's nobody's business. All during that time is important. And then we push them back in the classroom to make sure that they're getting more interventions while being in that classroom as well. So it won't interfere with them learning, it won't take nothing away, and those elective teachers, they're also, like today, they're a part of, they're math and reading teachers as well. So we're all doing it over there, everybody.
It's a good question. Any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am. Go Astros, by the way.
I've got a comment.
Yes,
My
ma'am.
daughter is in 5th grade at Alta Vista, and I sit on every committee the school has for the parents. And I can say without a doubt, Ms. Logan and all the teachers at Alta Vista, they put 100% in teaching the children. So,
think your point's well taken. I don't think we have an effort issue. I really believe people are giving their best. But there's a difference between effort and ability. So I do want teachers that work hard, and I do want parents to believe in their teachers and administration. But the best way I could really know that Alta Vista teachers are hardworking and as dedicated as you're saying is in their data. So I'm not saying they're not. J.H. Hines, Julius St. Paul's, my strongest principal I got. But until that data comes in, that has to be a criteria that's in the equation, because this whole feeling good about the schools, that'll get your schools closed. And everybody will feel good about it. Oh, the school is great. But once it's closed, it's closed. So I really put that pressure. I think a lot of times teachers feel like I'm putting too much pressure. And I don't feel that way. I love our teachers. I believe they're just what you, I see what you see at Alta Vista. I just want to fix this problem. And this problem is technical and complex, and it goes through teacher quality. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's my wife, and I'm going to say this. I'm also on the committees with my wife. Seeing this lady at work. Our daughter's been there all her time in school. We have problems mostly with parents not wanting to come to different functions. And you were saying something earlier about feeder school, really about feeder schools.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm from New Orleans, and I went to a high school from public school. And they had one feeder school that would let me go to summer school to be able to go to the Catholic school for high school. You can't beat a program like that. If you have a feeder school for the lower grades, it helps those students, criteria, educational-wise, and being able to deal with other people better. They can really go far in school. So he has a great idea right there.
Appreciate your feedback. Mayor, or somebody behind the mayor? I see you, man. We'll get you.
I just wanted to make a comment on what Mr. McAdoo had said. One of the things that I have learned in working with some of the students from WISD is that if you don't teach or tutor these students, then they can't pass even their math subjects. So I think it's very appropriate for principals to focus on tutors. That if you have good tutors coming into your school, you cannot do any better for those students who really need it if they will learn and pay attention. But one of the things that I thought we needed to look at, feeder school to Tennyson. I'm going to assume that it's Crestview and Lake Air. What are the feeder schools to Tennyson Junior High? Mountain View, those schools, yes, those schools. Right, but it is not Brook Avenue nor West, right? One of the things I think we could do, those teachers could actually, the schools could actually have a partnership within the school system. Mountain View, Brook Avenue, Tennyson with another Indian Spring. I'm just saying we can learn to use those best practices. Those teachers need to be communicating with one another. Don't wait until you have a mandatory meeting to have that type of relationship. We need to build those after-school relationships with the schools so they can help one another. It's not just about Mountain View, you see. You got to be concerned about Brook Avenue, and every single principal in this district should be concerned about every school. And until they begin to partner with one another, then we can't have the success that we need. I just think we have everything we need. If we have all these great schools in WISD, then there is no excuse. We can do this.
Well, one of the things I think I take from your comments, Mrs. Beard, is all the answers to these problems are already here in Waco. We don't need a consultant. We don't need a network. we need to we need to clean our own house. Period. Ma'am, you had a comment?
Yes. These two started it, but I didn't see you.
I get the feeling, okay.
I was a PTA president twice. My kids went through all the schools here, and I have worked in quite a few of the different ones, taught various things. And one of the things these two people did finally address the elephant in the room. The problem is not the children, not the school board, not the teachers. It's the parents who weren't raised themselves to go to school and know what to do. They don't know to teach their kids. You've got to learn so you can have a future. TSTC won't do it. MCC won't do it. The nursing thing and the welding one are not going to do it unless these kids have been taught from the beginning that you've got to learn and you've got to work. I saw them in so many schools I know. The people over at Midway at least seem to try to keep working. I'm so glad to hear Tennyson was great. My daughter didn't want her daughter to go to Tennyson because she was afraid it had gone downhill like the others. J.H. Hines and Alta Vista were much better when they were strictly Montessori. I worked at that too, and I know what it gives. But we've got to address the fact the parents are not capable of doing it, and they can't help their kids, and they're not going to because they think welfare is the way to go. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel about it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir, Representative Anderson.
Yes, I think it's very exciting about the possibility of the sixth grade center.
Okay.
Take away so much of the stress that those kids have in that regard. And you can have them by themselves there.
Yes, sir.
To prepare them going forward. And the single gender, I would hope
both of those.
I would hope the school board would adopt that. I think that would take a lot of the stress out also.
Well, I appreciate that, and I want to commend you for being here because I have been pretty critical of the legislature, and I know you're used to critics. So I just want to be clear that I'm here to be part of the solution. I know you didn't vote it by yourself. I know it required, the legislature is very complex work. And we know that you're down there advocating for us the best you can. But I just ask that everyone be mindful when those legislators are in session. They're down there making policies and mandates that you have no idea when it'll come back, but here it is. So God bless you, though, for being here. It takes a lot of support. I feel a lot of support from your office, and I know you were just at Waco High the other day and visiting with those kids, and I know you agree with me. You know, kids today, God bless them, they're different. You know, I don't want to get into it, but, you know, I like to think of myself, you know, I'm from the class of 1990, and I think I'm the last of the old school. You know, I got paddled. Man, now that'll get you on administrative leave if you do what my teachers did to me, but you know, kids are different, and that's just part of our reality that we got to deal with our millennials. But I appreciate you, Representative Anderson. I do. I think there was another comment back here. Oh, so we'll go right here, and then we'll get you next. All right. Go ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned the early childhood and preschool, because I mentioned it early today, and people didn't really take me seriously.
Yes, ma'am.
But you know, infants, they start at birth with mastery and achievement motivation. You know, and if you build up on that, by the time they get ready for preschool and kindergarten, they're good to go.
Sure.
So you come into this world ready to explore your world. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
And when I was in school, the goals were learning goals, but now they are performance goals. Everything is about performing on the test. But when I was in school, it was all about learning. And another thing, your idea about the gender-specific schools, I like that too. Because kids, when they come from elementary to middle school to high school, they have special issues that a lot of times is not addressed. But if they're in gender-specific schools, I think they will learn the correct behaviors and do better academically. I really do. So I like all your ideas, in other words.
Thank you very much. And I look forward to visiting with your neighborhood association. You know, I got you, Laura, we'll get him just a second. You know, this whole concept, as a superintendent, the way to fix this problem long-term is with your incoming 3-year-old babies. And shock their world when they walk in, the 3-year-old for the first time, shock it again at 4, to where when they walk into kindergarten, they're like, what? Teach me. Teach me. And they've got an appreciation for what we call student engagement and rigor. See, if you walk into a classroom and the teacher's doing all the talking, that's not good. See, kids have to be thinking out loud, making mistakes. They have to be thinking critically. And that starts at 3 years old. Matter of fact, we can take a kid at 3 and we can pretty much eliminate the achievement gap by kindergarten. Whereas if you try to start eliminating it in 4th grade, it actually gets worse by the time they get to high school. Question back there, Ms. Robinson?
I actually have a statement and like some solutions. I have an interesting perspective. I can't see you. So I'm a graduate of Waco ISD. I graduated from Waco High. I'm a parent, and my son goes to West Avenue. And I'm also a professor at MCC. So, and he lives in a household with parents who have degrees, and we're choosing to stay in Waco ISD because I can choose to go to Midway, I can choose to go to La Vega, but I'm choosing to stay in Waco ISD because this is my heart. A few things I think the school would help with the school is a PTA. There's no PTA. We don't have a PTA, and I've been on this, PTA. Some parents just don't know how to help. They want to help, they just don't know how to help. I think we have a good PTA at the schools to show the parents, especially the students that are English as a second language learners. Those parents want to help, they just don't know how, and like some of our parents do. So I think that's something we can do like really fast. After school program, there's no quality educational after school program. And I was told because of money, funding. It was a transportation issue. So the kids, they couldn't afford for the kids to bus them back home after school. If they had an after school program, because the bus would have to run twice. It would run, and the parents couldn't come pick them up because of finances. So we had to shut that after school program because I'm pushing for after school. And another thing, maybe not last thing, but the books, the AR books that they read a week, they can send those home. I asked my son's teacher to send his home, and his scores went up because we read it to him at home. And so by the time Friday and Thursday came, he passed those tests because it was more, I was going over more with him. So that was something that we did that helped my son's scores personally. And also a big program, Freedom School. My son does Freedom School twice. He's done it 2 years straight. It's a reading intensive program. It only happened at West Ave and at Cesar Chavez. It was at Hines, but it wasn't at Hines anymore. It's a good free summer program that lasts 3 to 4 weeks. The kids ate healthy lunches, 2 healthy snacks, and this is funded. And my son's scores went up 2 grade levels because of this 3-week reading program. There was reading intense every day. They had a book. They'll read that book, and all the activities revolved around that book. And then they kind of went over that book. His reading and every day they read a book. He read 2 books a day. Because I told him, I said, hey, I'm gonna give you $1 a day for reading books. So he just kept reading. I'm like, wait a minute. So those are my suggestions. I'm also free to help. I talked to you at the Clarence Thomas event. I don't know if you remember me. I was that parent to kind of pull you to the side, say, these are my schools. And final last thing, I promise you, I will take my seat. I actually worked for the federal government when they first started. My degree is in policy education. So I actually worked with the federal government when they started doing No Child Left Behind, and I saw schools close. A good example I would say is Michael Brown. Michael Brown's school system was part of those schools who closed, and that community is crushed because of that. Ferguson is because of the schools closed. So I just don't want my community to end up like Ferguson.
Excellent.
I'm done.
Feedback. Good feedback. Any other comments or questions? This is Dr. Saxon. the interim dean of the School of Education, my good friend, Dr. Terrell Saxon.
Interim, that's the key word. Yeah, every time I think we've met maybe 3 or 4 times now, and every time I sit and listen to you, I'm inspired by your resilience. So I don't know that I've ever told you that. But
I appreciate it.
I wanted to ask about. I have 2 questions. One is about Laredo and your experience there. Are the ideas that you talk about tonight, are these things you tried there, or did you come back, or did you come here with other ideas, or what have you got in the playbook? And then the other question I have is, how much time? I know the clock is ticking, but how much time do we have?
Well, if we don't make a decision, if our Board of Trustees does not act on a proposal that then is forwarded to the Texas Education Agency by February of 2018, then the Texas Education Agency is assuming that we'll be closing those 5 schools if they're unsuccessful. So they're kind of like, if we don't get something from your board by February, end of February, then we're going to just go ahead and start the process of ending your campus ID numbers. We're going to want to make sure those schools have no students in them in the fall. So to answer your question, February 2018, board takes action January 2018, and here we are almost in November 2017. So about 90 days to answer your question. In terms of Laredo, we really could have another meeting on this, but I want to say that there's no rocket science to this. One of the things we've been doing, we have 7 tools in our toolbox that we mandate. And I'll admit that we mandated them in every place I've ever been. They were mandated to me when I was a teacher in Garland. And so that's where I got them from. I didn't steal them. In Garland ISD, if you walk into the 5th grade teaching, the first thing you have to do is every day when the kids walk into the class, you have to put the objective on the board. If you don't put the objective on the board, then you get a ding from your assistant principal. Now that sounds simple, but here today in the Waco ISD, I was in classrooms today at Tennyson. 7 distinctions. And I walk into a class and there's not an objective on the board. Now you think about that. If there's no objective on the board, what that tells me is that somebody hadn't planned their lesson. Because if you planned your lesson, you walk in and you write, today you're going to learn polynomials or whatever. First thing you say to the kids, what do you think a polynomial is? I don't know, miss. Guess. And you go through this process where you teach them poly. What do you think poly means? Nomial. What do you think nomial means? Blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to teach you math here. But my point is that we mandate 7 instructional initiatives. Putting the objective on the board, planning your lessons, every kid writing in journals. Literacy is the biggest problem facing our city. Ask the mayor. If you knew how many adults in this city cannot or will not read or write. And so that backs all the way up until our 2nd grade classes. And those kids start learning their letters and writing words, then writing sentences, and so on and so forth. So, I don't want to get into it, but yeah, I have 7 tools that they work. Now, for the record, the work is harder in Waco than it is in Laredo. It's harder because the diversity is much more rich. So like, for example, in Laredo, okay, so you get measured by TEA in Laredo too, right? But you really only have 2 subgroups in Laredo: Hispanics and economically disadvantaged. For most of the beautiful kids in Laredo, God bless them, if you are poor, you're Hispanic, you're in the same group. That's all the same kid, and that's it. You come to Waco, though. Go over to Carver. They got Anglo kids, Hispanic kids, African American kids, 2 or more racist kids, and not to mention economically disadvantaged. So in Laredo, you might have 2 subgroups at a middle school. In Waco, you got 12. And they've all got to meet this state standard. For some of our subgroups, this is not an excuse, it's a reality. You have to have 50 students in a subgroup for it to count, according to TEA. Well, we have some that have 52. So if a kid fails and there's only 52, that's a lot bigger deal than if a kid fails and there's 182 kids. So it's a clear math equation for us. It's more subgroups. I would build a case in my 4 months in this beautiful city. There's no place like Waco. Some of the turbulence, some of the drama, so to speak, is fierce here. And so you're having to overcome all of that. A lot of people in our city know about what's going on in WISD, they just don't care. It's not their kids. So in Laredo, it's not like that. Everybody is focused on improving the inner city, because if you improve the inner city, you improve your entire city. So, your point's a good question, and I'm not saying I have all the answers. I just know that my passion does not come from Laredo. My passion does not come from my credentials as a superintendent. My passion for improving these schools is because I was a chubby little poor kid that if I didn't have teachers who said, oh no, you're going to do this. You're going to pass this TOS test and you're going to go to college. I don't care where you go, but you're going to go. And I remember thinking, I think I can go to college because I had someone pushing me, opening access, dropping the dream in front of me. And now it's my life's work it's the great equalizer. It doesn't matter where you come from. We all come to the table of opportunity together. And we just got to encourage kids to eat. Literally. So we can talk more about that, and Dr. Saxon and I. Baylor has been a wonderful partner. We have some plans to really increase our relationship with the School of Education, and we want to be a pipeline where we take advantage of all the quality staff and professional development opportunities that the university offers, not only Baylor, but MCC as well. And so we really see ourselves as a heavy hitter in this community, just like our universities and colleges. Questions, comments? Mrs. Beard?
I just have one more comment. I have to make a comment. I'm sorry, I didn't want to go here tonight. In our organization, Parents Against Crime Coalition, we started a program called PAC Reads. Now, this is a small program that we're doing, but I would absolutely love to see our schools take that program and run with it. Our students, as well as our parents, have to read. The students read to the parents, parents read to the students, and they must make a journal entry. And we ask that they make a daily journal entry. We don't care if they don't read but one page. We just need the parents to start reading to the children. And this is all the way up to 6th grade. And if we start this, we have a lot of students who just can't read, and we didn't know it was this bad. So our parents, if we just encourage them, a lot of times parents kind of take offense at it, but we're trying to get them to help their children, and in turn, they help themselves. But you know what they also do? They create a memory with that child, and that child will remember that their parent was reading, and the parent can't be embarrassed about the fact that they might not be able to read even as well as their child. And we teach them to use a dictionary. They look those words up that they cannot pronounce, the parent and the child. We need to begin where the problem is. And we know that we have a problem with some of our young parents who cannot help their children study. And if we just let them learn to read, reading is the foundation. They cannot go anywhere until they can read. I didn't mean to get off on that.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor, go ahead.
Well, Dr. Nelson, I just want to say that you invited me to come to your convocation, and I thought you just wanted me to make an appearance. But I had the honor of listening to Dr. Nelson make his presentation to all his faculty and staff that day. And I told you afterwards, I believe, and I do. I believe that you're going to get this done, and we're going to get this done under your leadership. And I truly appreciate your position that closing these schools is not an option. The city believes that, this community believes that. These are all our kids, and we've got to make this right.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate the school board bringing you here, and I appreciate the work that you've done so far, and we're ready to help.
Well, I appreciate that, Mayor. It's real important.
Okay, now I heard earlier something that I really do like. Okay, the gentleman said, what can we do now? Okay, you made the distinction that we had approximately 90 days to get this thing together. Okay, so that means that there is really no time for these long distance plans. The young lady mentioned the PTA. Okay, one of the things I think that we have really came to the realization of that one of our biggest problems is the fact that we have a lot of parents who are just unable to read to their kids. But in order to find out who those parents are, if we can initiate a program like this PTA so that you can get parents together, that way being able to figure out what parents need some additional assistance with their children, then I think that would at least give us a starting point that we can come out of this night with something like the gentleman said that we can do right now.
Point well taken. Point well taken. For the record, we've already mandated PTAs to start no later than next semester. We only have a couple schools that were not in compliance on that, and yeah, parental engagement is our new battle cry. So we'll be following up with several ideas to engage our parents as partners. Yes, sir, New Orleans. Respectfully.
I was going to say that. That's good. Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, Ms. Logan herself can attest to this one. When we have our parent meetings, there's only 3 sets of parents that come. Me and my wife, Skylar and her mother, and there's one other parent that comes. Me, myself, I'm at work, so I get off work at 3:30. So I'm at school with my wife to pick up my daughter, and I'll talk to some of the parents, and I'll ask them, well, you're going to come to the meetings? Oh, I'm going to come, but they don't show up. But give them some food and an activity, and they all show up. It's crazy because, and she'll tell you, there's been different functions we've done, different times of the year, where we'll have nachos or whatever, and they'll come to that. Oh yeah, they'll come to that. Their kids will be in art or whatever might be going on for the school function part of it. We'll have a strategy to have the meeting 15 minutes before that starts. They won't show up at the meeting. They'll make sure they go and get their food though. That's another problem that we have.
Yes, sir.
Why do the parents figure that they can come to things like that, but the most important thing is the kid, they won't even try to do these things. Like she said, that's a good one. I wish we could do that one. Or maybe we might talk about that.
Sure.
About reading, because there are a lot of parents that cannot read. Cannot. So whatever we have to do on our campus, we try to do, and if we need to broaden our horizons and help with other groups, I'm all for it. So you have I'll get with you to get the phone numbers.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I wanted to, first of all, thank you for coming. I'm not sure if there's any members of the board that wanted to make a comment or any final comments. I I want to thank them for coming. Certainly didn't have to come, but I know they're fervently watching this closely as they prepare to make a decision. I also wanted to recognize my good friend, General Counsel for the Waco Independent School District, Mr. Peter Russick, who's here. Good man. Let's give him a round of applause. No, you don't want me to say this, but he's also president of the Midway Independent School District Board of Trustees, and so we give him a rough time about that. No, seriously, I want to thank, sitting next to Elaine Botello is a lady from Rappaport Academy. I can't remember her name, Bridget, but her and I are kind of kindred spirits in that, she spoke to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the LULAC chapter. And this is a young lady who, she's approximately más o menos my age, but she comes from the streets of Waco. And I ain't talking about the streets of Robinson or Axtell or nothing like that. I'm talking about South Waco. And I won't tell her story, but the bottom line is that she was very poor. She had every disadvantage that a Waco ISD student could experience, and she graduated from Baylor University. My assistant superintendent from Human Resources started off as a clerk, making $7 an hour. Today, she is the Chief Human Resources Officer for the Waco Independent School District. My list could go on and on of examples of people in this community that have been resilient. And so in addition to teaching our kids how to read and write and be literate, we really want them to see these setbacks as a setup for a comeback, and how proud they will be when we accomplish all of our community goals. We're all responsible for the development of our community. I thank you for being here tonight, and with that, I'll let Mr. Atkins close us out.
Before we formally adjourn, I want to do two things. First of all, I hope all of you here tonight can see what this school board saw the first time we met Dr. Marcus Nelson and his passion and his insights. And I'd like you to join me in thanking him for coming to the Waco ISD. Secondly, on behalf of the board and the district, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you first for your input and your insights tonight and understanding the importance of the issues we face as a district and as a community. But secondly, what I didn't anticipate tonight was hearing so many of you willing to get involved tomorrow and to help us immediately on these campuses to help these schools become the schools that this community wants and frankly these children deserve. So thank all of you for coming out tonight, for your willingness to volunteer and help us get these schools to where we want them to be. And with that, at 7:30 p.m. on the nose, this special meeting of the Board of Trustees will stand adjourned. Oh, wait, yes, Kerry?
Before you close this out, you covered a lot of ground this evening. I don't feel like we've adequately, covered the timeline for the TEA deadlines and what we're up against. I know there's the 90-day deadline for us to propose a plan, but what the gauntlet we're running actually ends at the testing regimen in April, which is so, and I feel like maybe we're discouraging the 90-day time period. Potentially might be the cause for despair on some folks, and
right, there are two different issues.
We do have more
here.
time than that. We do need the improvement in the schools. We just have that much time as a school board to present our plan for what we're going to do.
Well, I think Trustee Dupuy is absolutely correct. We're working on submitting a plan to TEA, which is due in February. But really, we could fix all this if our schools made it in May. And if we got our preliminary results back and it said Carver makes it, then to be honest with you, I probably still would go forward with some of my ideas. just because I believe that they're best for kids, and I do believe we need to kind of shake up some things and not just do things the way we've always done them. But let us get some serious organization to where we communicate the timelines as Trustee Dupuy is talking about, and we'll clearly put that out in our next communication.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Thank you, Carrie, for that clarification. And with that, unless any other board members have anything else they want to say, then this special board meeting will stand adjourned. Thank you, folks.